Ooh, that intro just hits every single time, does it
Love
not,
it.
Mr. Brandon Ramsey? Welcome, everyone, into another episode of Zoom Action KSR's basketball film breakdown show. As I just mentioned, I'm joined, myself, Zack, joined over on my wherever side by our coaching correspondent. I think that's a good way to refer to you, Brandon. Brandon Ramsey over there. First of all, I never get to really introduce you. I just kind of talk over you for about 5 minutes before we start actually doing the film stuff. So just how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to a couple games in Lexington this coming week. Kentucky beat Tennessee. That makes life better. Watched IU win a football national championship, which kind of feels like we're living in the upside down now.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Good game, though.
It was a heck of a game. But yeah, I'm doing good, Zach. How are you doing? Nobody ever asks how you're doing.
You know what? That's great. Yes. Thank you. I'm doing great. You know, before you asked me that, I was in a pit of despair, but now I feel a lot better. So thank you for tending to my needs as well. But as you mentioned, Brandon, Kentucky is coming off a win against Tennessee. 17-point comeback. Kentucky was down by as many as 17 in the first half of that one. It's becoming a trend nowadays. 3 straight wins now for Kentucky where they've been down by double digits. First against Mississippi State in the first half. I think that one got down to maybe as much as 12. I kind of forget. That game feels like months ago now.
18-6 against Mississippi State.
18-6. And then next game against LSU, Kentucky is down 18 in the second half. Claws back to win that one. Down 17 in the first half against Tennessee. Down 11 at halftime against Tennessee. I think it ended up getting to like 12 or 13 in the second half there before Kentucky was able to complete that comeback as well. And that's what we're going to focus on today is the Tennessee game there. So the question that everyone in Big Blue Nation wants to know right now, Brandon, is why the hell can Kentucky not get off to these good starts? Like, what's going on here? But the inverse, or kind of on that same question, is, well, what's happening in these second halves that allows Kentucky to play so well? Like, you know, why is the point differential so insane in Kentucky's favor in these second halves? So we're going to attempt to kind of figure that out, I guess, a little bit over this Tennessee film. We have a bunch of different clips queued up. Most of them are from the second half of Kentucky's kind of comeback stretch there. The comeback was really, it started kind of in the beginning or the late end of that first half where Kentucky was able to get a few shots to go late into that first half there to cut the lead to 11 and make it a little bit more manageable. So we got a few different clips there to comb over from that. And then I've also got some stuff like just some Jasper Johnson, Malachi Moreno stuff I want to talk about as well. I wrote an article on and have some fun stats that I think are interesting. And I'm sure everyone wants to know Brandon's thoughts on that stuff as well. So before we actually dive into all the fun stuff, let me give a shout out to our sponsored partner for today's episode of Zoom Action. And it is My Old Kentucky Home Repair. They've been with us for a couple episodes now. Big shout out to them. They are proudly serving the Bluegrass region since 2008. My Old Kentucky Home Repair offers handyman services, home repairs, remodels, and more. Head to their website, myoldkyhomerepair.com, to learn more or give them a call at 859-940-3376. My Old Kentucky Home Repair is your partner for any home project. And My Old Kentucky Home Repair.com must have been working in behind the scenes of the Joe Kraft Center the last week and a half, because something has been repaired, at least in the second half with this Kentucky team. And we're going to go, if Steven, you can go ahead and show or flex look at that. Look how pretty that was from Steven there. So like I said, most of our clips are going to come from the second half here. We're going to start. Let me make sure I know where we're starting here. Yes. Okay. This is accurate here where we're starting. So Kentucky's down 11 minutes left in this game. We're going to go straight through Brandon. We're going to go through all three of your clips first that you sent. Basically just offensively, how Kentucky was able to generate some easy looks and get some points against this pretty tough Tennessee defense. So we're going to start off here, which ended up being it ends with a Denzel Aberdine 3, but this was like a very just high level ball movement play that you're going to see from Kentucky.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and mute it first of all, and then we'll let the play develop here a little bit. And it's just simple moving the ball around. Players are moving off ball as well, keeping the defense active. You get some nice pick and roll action there. Mo cuts, hits to Jasper, who finds Denzel Aberdine on the corner for a 3. Massive shot there for the Cats. And I believe actually after this play, Jay Billis even says on the broadcast that is the best ball movement of the entire game for Kentucky. And it's kind of hard to disagree with that based on the action that you just saw right there. Like that was maybe a 15-second play. They moved the ball 6 or 8 times, something like that. So and it results in a 3. Big shot, and the score was actually 58-51, so that cuts it back down to a 4-point lead. Big shot for Kentucky. But Brandon, why was this the first play that you decided to pick for our breakdown this week?
Because as Jay Billis was saying, it was the best ball movement of the game. I was sitting there thinking like this is my favorite possession of the season, almost just with the way the ball was moving around. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was when you get over here to the side with hitting Mo Diabate on the little short roll here, like this made me think back to the first half against LSU when that was what LSU was giving Kentucky. And you think back to that first half against LSU, Malachi Moreno turns it over on the roll a couple times. He misses kind of a tough little floater or shots at the rim on the roll. Diabate has some issues trying to score on the short roll because you just weren't really you weren't playing in as much space. You weren't executing. Maybe you weren't ready for it on the roll this time. Or thinking back to the LSU game, but this time it was as if Kentucky got better, and it was as if they kind of worked out on something in practice and found a way to exploit what the defense was going to give you. And instead of Mo Diabate catching it and trying to make some tough play at the rim, like, hey, let's go ahead and move it ahead to a guy. Then you get a great one more pass out of the corner. And then even Denzel showing some patience by not shooting the first one, taking a little sidestep dribble and shooting an even cleaner one on the second look there. I mean, heck, he maybe could even thrown it to Colin Chandler for a more open 3, but we'll take the 3 points however you can get them there. So, but I thought there was such a stark contrast between Kentucky executing on the roll early on against LSU to this play here that I really wanted to emphasize and show that. And then obviously, heck, it's just a pretty basketball play when you see the ball change sides of the floor like that, multiple passes, extra passes, guys turning down good shots for great shots, all that sort of thing. And I thought you saw all of that here in this possession, and really, quite frankly, throughout the second half as Kentucky came back against Tennessee.
Yeah, so a few things that I find interesting from this play is, first of all, like Colin Chandler, I don't know if he's a weird passer, if that makes sense, because he. Even on the very last play, when he finds Otega Oweh for the and one that puts Kentucky ahead, he was so hesitant on that pass to just make that simple floater, because it feels like he struggles with the easy passes, but then with something like this, just a quick right into the pocket there to Mo Diabate, the pick and roll, just makes that pass beautifully. So he's an interesting passer, but it feels like he has really good chops at when it comes to actually making passes that lead to points, essentially, as opposed to just maybe doing regular everyday passes. Sometimes he can struggle with for whatever reason. But great play here by Mo Diabate, who more often than not, at least at multiple times in this game, he did shoot shots like this, and at multiple points throughout the season, he shoots shots like this. Did not do that this time. Found a wide open Jasper Johnson for a 3, or who was able to move the ball and get Denzel for his 3. But Brandon, I think the main question that people are going to want to know is, why was Kentucky able to get this sort of look in the second half against Tennessee, and as opposed to not being able to get that look in the first half? And I think before you answer that question, I think one thing that Mark Pope mentioned in the post-game press conference of this was, in the second half of this game, they gave the ball to Denzel Aberdine and said, okay, we're going to space the floor. We're going to stretch the floor more, and we're just going to kind of let you rock and pick and rolls and give you a little bit more freedom. Was it just a matter of Kentucky had more space in the second half by doing that, and it allowed situations where Mo Diabate can find a wide open Jasper Johnson in the corner for 3, or was there anything more complex or even simple than that as to why Kentucky was able to generate looks like this in the second half that they really weren't in the first 15 minutes of this game?
Yeah, it's really tough because even the coach in me, you want there to always be all right, Zach, you just asked me the question, and I have this well thought out, super intuitive answer. And it's really only a question of whether we can execute it or not. I at least know what the answer is, but maybe we're just not as good enough to execute it, whatever. With this kind of stuff, man, it is tough because I didn't think Kentucky, and Captain Crash 21 in the comments, he said that he didn't think Kentucky played that bad in the first half. He actually went so far to say there were times where he thought they looked even better. I'm not sure if I would go that far, but I agree that I didn't, when I went back and rewatched the game, I didn't think that Kentucky was awful in the first half. I thought Tennessee made some really tough shots. I thought Kentucky was maybe a little bit tentative And quite frankly, I think that is one of the biggest differences that you see from this team kind of on their way to falling behind, and then how they play once they are behind, is that once their back is against the wall, it's almost like they have a little bit more freedom to them because, like, hey, what do we have to lose? We're down 17. We're probably going to lose this game. I might as well, you know, just let my basketball ability take over and see what happens. So I think that Kentucky becomes much more aggressive when they're losing, and that's something that you do just kind of need to mentally fix. Like, hey, let's have the confidence. I have the confidence. All right, Captain Crash did clarify that he was joking. That does make more sense. But to your point, I genuinely do want to say, like, I didn't think Kentucky was awful in the first half, but I do think there's a freedom and an aggressiveness that Kentucky plays with once they get these large deficits that does allow them to play better. Now, should that need to be the case? Obviously not. But it is tough because there's a little bit of it too where you start to wonder, like, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy where, like, the more you worry about the bad starts, the more you almost like start to manifest bad starts? Because, like, no, do I think it's because Coach Pope has bad pregame speeches? Do I think it's because they need to warm up differently? Do I think it's because they, need to wear different jerseys, like their pump up music stinks? Like, I don't think that any of this, that, they need to eat pregame meal at Jeff Ruby's instead of Tony's. Like, I don't think that is what's going to fix any of this. I think some of it is mental, and then I do think that some of it is that because Kentucky isn't overwhelmingly talented, and something I've talked about with this team is that everybody's been waiting for that, like, well, this is the lineup that we need to play to fix things, and now it's this lineup, and then it's this lineup, or we need to run zoom action, we need to play slower, we need to play faster, smash mouth, shoot more threes. The truth is, with this team, they aren't good enough to really establish their identity against the opponent. I think that they do need to do our favorite term, some data finding, some data collection, and then kind of figure out, okay, against Mississippi State, this is how we're going to win the game. Against LSU, this is how we're going to win the game. Against Tennessee, this is how we're going to win the game. Again, does that mean that you should have to get down 12, 18, and 17 points? No, we need to find a way for that to not happen. But I do think that there is some real truth to this team being better in second halves than they're going to be in first halves, because I think Coach Pope and the staff is smart and they know how to make these adjustments. I think what they need to do is do better at making them in real time and maybe not having to wait until halftime. Like, hey, can we make these adjustments at the 12-minute mark when it's still maybe 10-7 instead of waiting until you're down 17? I think those are some of the tweaks. But genuinely, I thought the way they executed in the second half, like, that is a recipe going forward. Again, this is a borderline top 10 defense. So what we saw in the second half, like, that's sustainable.
49 points in that second half for Kentucky. So really we're pouring it on. Like, the efficiency was just incredible in that second half. I think they were 6 for 10. Yeah, 6 for 10 from 3 in that second half as well. So let's go ahead and move on here to the next play that you have picked out. Not too much longer in the game either. This is an inbounds play from the corner spot here. Jasper finds Mo Diabate. Oh, there we go. We'll start over here. Jasper finds Mo Diabate, and then you just get some simple actions here. Denzel gets himself at the top. Again, this was something that Mark Pope mentioned in the press conference, that this was kind of a thing that they were making a little bit more of a point of, was to get Denzel up high with some pick and roll action and space your guys outside of him. Denzel rejects the screen here. It forces that Tennessee defender to kind of cave in essentially on Denzel, and he just hits Colin Chandler for a wide open three. Another massive shot there that cuts the lead down to 4 again for Kentucky. So similar stuff here, Brandon, but just kind of a different way of getting it. What'd you see here, and kind of what was the sticking point of this play for you that made you choose it?
So what I wanted to talk about in this clip, and then really it pertains to the next one as well. And if you read what you should read, my scouting reports before every game on KSR Plus, worth a subscription in my opinion. If you want to kind of feel like you're in the locker room.
Hey, $1 for 5 days right now, by the way. We're at $1 for 5 days.
Let's do it. But these are written very genuinely like I wrote them when I was coaching college basketball. It's the same template that I use to put them together. So it is as close to a college locker room scouting report as you'll probably find on the internet. But I talked a lot about how Tennessee helps with 2 hands and 2 feet on drives, and that Kentucky was going to have to shoot it in from 3 because that's what they give you defensively. Now, Tennessee's really good defensively. They don't necessarily give you anything, but what's going to be there are those little short drives and then kickouts. And we saw that here as Denzel Aberdine rejects this screen, even on the strong side. Like, look at how aggressively right here he steps in off of a 40% shooter in the strong side corner. Like, there's a lot of defenses that would tell you to don't ever help off the strong side shooter, no matter who it is, let alone a 40% shooter in Colin Chandler. But that's what Tennessee's going to do. They don't want to let you into the paint, but they're going to concede sometimes these inside out threes. And the other part I like about this, and this goes back to probably some of our preseason Zoom action shows, I talk a lot about guys who can create help and guys you can't help off of. Now, for a lot of this season, Kentucky struggled with having either one of those things. Like, we struggled to create penetration that would require guys to help, and nobody was making shots. So there was nobody who the defense really felt like you couldn't help off of. Now, does Tennessee kind of turn that up a little bit because they are so aggressive helping in the gaps? Absolutely. But this is a great example of Denzel Aberdeen driving the ball and forcing a defender to help. Because quite frankly, if that defender doesn't step over, he probably shoots a left-handed layup here.
Yeah.
Like, he beat his man
scoring there,
getting downhill to the rim. So now you draw a second defender, and I get to kick it to a guy who's shooting 40% from three on like 2.5 makes a game. That's a really good basketball recipe. Like, this isn't some fancy, intricate set play. This is mostly just high ball screen, play off of it, but you get a good playmaker making a play to a good shooter. And one of the things I want to mention too, Denzel Aberdeen has had some selfishness issues. I think it's probably fair to say, like, that there's times where he's too one-track minded, going
tunnel vision,
for the basketball, and he's taken some bad shots throughout the year. In SEC play, 15 assists, 6 turnovers. That's not too bad for a guy who's filling in at point guard. You're darn near 3-to-1 in assist to turnover ratio, averaging 3 assists a game. That, again, when we're talking about recipes going forward, 3 assists a game from Denzel Aberdeen with what he can add as a scorer, I'll sign up for that. Like, he is doing a good job distributing the ball now for Kentucky, and plays like this really drive that home of like, hey, we might be onto something here with Denzel Aberdeen initiating some offense and being a real playmaker for Kentucky.
And I do think there is something to the idea of just not of the looking over your shoulder thing with Jalen Lowe. Like, there is something to Denzel having a more clearly defined role right now, and not having to worry about if he's going to be playing off ball or on ball. Like, he just kind of knows what's happening on a game by game situation right now because Jalen Lowe is out. And that trickles down to how Jasper Johnson was able to play well in this game as well, not having to look over his shoulder as well a little bit. So I think that stuff does matter. And, like, in the long run, is it going to be better or worse for Kentucky to have Jalen Lowe after the season? We don't know the answer anymore because he's out. But at least in this immediate future, like where the team is right now, Jalen Lowe being out and not having this like half in, half out type thing is helping Denzel, because he just knows exactly what to do. Like, he knows
what his role is. Absolutely.
Yeah. He had some like learning curve when he was kind of being the solo PG1 early in the season when Jalen was going through his whole thing. And now I feel like he's finally been able to settle in. He knows part of it is Pope is like moving his rotation to make it a little bit easier, like a little bit more continuity with everyone, it feels like. So he's getting into that flow a little bit more. And there was the 4-game stretch last year at Florida where Denzel was the point guard for Florida, and he played really well. He's putting up similar stats in that 4-game run of what we've seen over the last 2 or 3 games from him. So just having a defined role is clearly, it's helping him. He's still taking some bad shot. Like, the shot that he made left-handed that put Kentucky up 3 with 15 seconds left, like, that was we might show it at the end here, but that was a difficult shot, probably a 20% make type shot, and he managed to get that ball to go in. And sometimes it's just, you've just got a veteran playmaker who's played a bunch of bad shots. So, and that type of stuff does show up in those type of moments. So we'll go ahead and move on to our third play that Brandon has queued up here. This is going to be I believe we get a little bit of a zoom action on this play. Let's see what we got here. So we'll run it up. Denzel again. Actually, no, we go right into the zoom action here. Ortega receives the pass. Just easy ball movement. Nothing too special here, but this frees up Ortega for this was probably the only 3 Ortega took all game that was actually open. The other 4, I felt like were either not catch and shoots like this or just too contested. This one was like his perfect setup for Ortega. You want to give him a little bit of space with a catch and shoot. He's going to make that shot probably 50% of the time. And then just gets this one wide open. Boom, big 3 for Kentucky. Makes it a 2-point game going into the under 8 media timeout there. But Brandon, it's kind of like simple stuff that we've been asking for, just like an easy zoom action, but this time it just works out to perfection here. So I guess, what do you like about this play?
Yeah, I love the urgency and the pacing of getting into the zoom action here. Like, there's no looking around of, hey, what are we going to run? It's like, no, this is automatic. We're in a half court. We're going to run zoom. Like, that's just what we do. And I think that getting to that, it really helps this team find a rhythm offensively. I mean, it's not entirely different than when we're talking about with the rotations and the lineups. Like, when you don't have to think about whether, am I going to play 15 minutes or 25 minutes? Am I going to be on the ball or off the ball? It's the same thing as, like, I don't have to think about what we're running offensively. We're just down here, and I'm going to get into zoom action because that's what we do. So you get some really good pace getting into this. I thought the down screen here by Denzel Aberdine, like, you actually get the guy's screen. It's pretty physical. Oway, creates a little bit of a closeout there for Jasper Johnson. He attacks that. And then once again, this is a Tennessee thing. They're going to help with 2 hands and 2 feet. These are this little Jasper Johnson drive is exactly what I would have pictured it would look like if Kentucky was going to win this game, where, like, it's 2 dribbles to the elbow. He can't get to the paint because they're going to cut that off. But then instead of over penetrating and trying to get in there and all of a sudden they steal it from you, or instead of kind of getting scared, so now I pull up for some crazy jump shot, you have to make that pass. And I think earlier in the season, we would have seen Kentucky turn it over more or take bad shots more. And now we're really starting to move that ball ahead and use that use that help against them. Again, it's guys that create help and guys you can't help off of. I know we don't necessarily think of Otega Oweh as this big-time shooter, though, in SEC play. Heck, he's been one of Kentucky's most consistent three-point shooters. But again, I'll reiterate, I mean, the synergy stats don't lie. On his career, he's essentially a 40% catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. Like, when this guy's open, when he can catch and shoot, it is a really good high-percentage shot for Kentucky. And now, when he gets to play with guys like Denzel Aberdine, with Jasper Johnson, who are doing a much better job of creating some help and forcing defenses to rotate a little bit, now you can get guys like Otega Oweh some catch and shoot threes like this. So I just thought that this play so perfectly mirrored. If you would have asked me before the game, like, hey, Brandon, draw me up an offensive possession of what it's going to look like if Kentucky beats Tennessee, I would have shown you something like this.
Yeah, this is Mark Pope offense right here. Like, this is what you expect from him. But I want to give Jasper Johnson a shout out on this play. And I think the shout out that I'm giving, the reason I'm giving him the shout out was because I don't think he gets, like, first, like, he has the pump fake, which they bite on, and then he makes the jab step in, which they collapse on. Did they do both of those things if Jasper Johnson doesn't have 12 points in the first half and is kind of just lighting them up, like shooting 2 pull-up threes, and then having 3 different times where he gets himself into the lane for easy buckets? Like, do they bite as hard as on those things if that doesn't happen? Maybe not. So good credit to Jasper Johnson, who didn't actually score in this second half, but had 3 assists and 0 turnovers. And I think part of the reason he was able to do that was because of how effective he was in the first half. And then he didn't trap himself in a tunnel vision brain, and he was able to make easy passes like this. Because Jasper's a good playmaker. Like, we're about to show later in this video how Jasper is a very unique playmaker on this team, especially with Jalen Lowe out. So, just good offense here. This is Mark Pope offense. Big 3 there from Ortega. That was his only made 3 of the game. I think he was 1 for 5. On the game there, maybe 1 for 4, but massive shot there. So we're going to move along here. We're going to go to my play, which is actually one, Brandon, that I don't know if you looked at it beforehand or not, but this was one that we kind of lightly discussed in our group chat. And it's similar to what we've already covered a few different times, but a little bit less, I guess, not as, like, there's no, I don't think there's any zoom action in this one or anything, but essentially what you're going to get here is Denzel Aberdine at the top of the key, like just saying, okay, Gillespie, you want to guard me 30 feet from the bucket? Fine. I'll bring a pick and roll up here. Brandon Garrison, let's get into our 2-man game. I'm going to find a way through this. And then there's two things that are great here. Like, I feel like maybe even in the last video, I got on Denzel for being like, dude, you're doing the Chris Paul thing too much, where like you wait for the defender to get on your ass, and then you try and like use your ass as another out of bounds slang or like something like that, you know? And I feel like he's still doing that here, but he's not like waiting for the defender to get to him. He's doing like there's just seems to be more purpose. Like he's actually waiting for the space to open. So he's waiting for the space to open. And then you have Brandon Garrison doing the moving screen stuff that we've talked about many times that him and Malachi are really good at, where you just, as long as you are still moving and you just are like going through your natural motion and aren't like being excessive and aggressive, like with how you set these screens, like they're not going to call it. So both those things happen, and Denzel attacks the space. Brandon Garrison frees is able to shed that center a little bit for Tennessee, and then Denzel makes a tough shot at the rim here that he was basically doing all game. So that's why I liked this play, because it went back to what we were talking about at the beginning, where part of the second half offensive identity was to kind of let DA cook from the top and see if he can just bob and weave his way into sets and actions that help set up Kentucky for good looks. And this was just literally just a 2-man game here with him and Brandon Garrison. You've got your 3 shoot, like Mo Diabate is not even a shooter, and they're like, that's the guy that crashes in for Tennessee, and Denzel's still able to make just a tough shot here. But that's what he was good at this game, and he's been good at this season at actually being able to convert on some of those tough shots. So that's why I picked this play, Brandon. But what did you think about this one? Anything stand out for you?
Yeah, your point about that little Chris Paul move, what was so different here with Denzel doing it was that I feel like in games past, he's gotten that guy on his hip, and then he just like keeps him on his hip. Whereas here, he uses that move to then accelerate forward and get downhill. Like when he drives down the lane line there, it's because he got Gillespie on his butt instead of just like keeping him there. And it's like he's jockeying a horse or something. Like he actually uses that to like, okay, now I create space with my butt and get downhill, as opposed to just like letting him like ride you right there. Like, no, get down to the rim and go score it. And then with Brandon Garrison, I know I'm the one that sings his song from time to time.
Hey, go for it. He was good in this game. Well, not good. There's a couple things that are true
about Brandon Garrison. He is the best ball screener on the team, and it's not even close. He just has this really weird, like for a guy that isn't always like the highest IQ player, he puts himself in position to ball screen like a pro. Like the way he just kind of like moves around, he sets it both different ways, he moves his feet, and then he gets the guy. Like he runs into Brandon Garrison's chest. Like he just has this kind of innate ability to find guys in ball screen situations. And then the way he rolls down there and he just finds a way. Like when I was coaching, we'd always talk about our big guys as being in the way. Like when you roll to the basket, just, use your big lumbering body and just kind of try to be in the way of guys, because it's like kind of illegal, but it's not really illegal. Cause like, hey, I'm just rolling to the basket. What do you want me to do? Like, I took him with me a little bit, and that was able to get Denzel this bucket here. He obviously played great in the second half, but yeah, the main thing I wanted to point out, as you mentioned, that using his butt there to create that separation and explode downhill, that was what made this so much different than what we've seen from Aberdeen in games past.
Yeah, and the point that I was trying to make, and you kind of said it better than I did, but when it felt like early in the season, Denzel was doing the hip thing. Like it felt like he was just doing it just to keep the defender on his back. Whereas now, or at least in this possession here, he's doing that to actually bide his time a little bit and find his space. And then, like you said, like sometimes we forget that Brandon Garrison's still 250 pounds. Like he's 6'10", 250. Like he's a bigger dude than he actually kind of looks in person, just because he kind of fumbles around like a giraffe a little bit when he's running around. But he's actually a massive dude. So like really good screen right there on Gillespie to just get Denzel in a spot there where it's basically a 2-on-1 before the Tennessee guy comes over. And then, I don't know who is 23 for.
That's Jalen Carey, the largest man in the world.
That's their kid. That's the guy that I jokingly called 300 pounds during the rapid reaction, because he is he was an absolute load down there. Not so much in the second half, actually. I have some second half stats on their bigs that are kind of interesting that I can touch on in a second.
Can I whisper something to you, Zack, real quick?
Please.
Part of the reason he wasn't as effective in the second half, Brandon Garrison played quite a few minutes. And Brandon Garrison is pretty darn physical when you just let him be physical. He's good at
Well,
that.
even Malachi Moreno was kind of getting his butt kicked in the first half, and then the second half he has 3 blocks, and like he still got there was a couple of times where he still got abused at the rim, but that's part of being a rim protector is you just have to take your licks with that sometimes. But in terms of their so I'll just say it now. So Carey, Estrella, Brown, and Okpara. In the first half, they had 16.6 offensive rebounds. Those are their 4 bigs. In the second half, those 4 had 6 points, 3 offensive rebounds. So I don't know if there was just more of an emphasis to kind of stick on those guys, or maybe it was more Brandon Garrison, less Yelovich, something like that. Maybe just a little bit more size. Maybe more Mo Diabate helps as well. So yeah, it was they did a good job of at least limiting their bigs in that second half. And this was just a great play here from Brandon Garrison and Denzel Aberdine. Like we haven't even mentioned that he had 18 of his 22 points came in the second half of this game. Like he was absolutely on fire. I think he had 17 points in the second half of that LSU game, if I remember correctly. Ortega had like 14 or something like that. So those two have been, and Ortega down the stretch of this game was just the final 5 minutes. It's like, okay, it took him 35 minutes to show up, but once he did, or the final 8 minutes, but when he showed up, he really did. So that was I think that was my last like regular play. So I've got, if Brandon, if there's any overwhelming points you want to make on those 4 clips we just showed, I'll let you go ahead and make those on just the offense as a whole in the second half and how it was maybe better than the first half or even other games in general that we've seen.
I think one of the things that we're seeing is, and there's some chicken or the egg even to debate here, but you're seeing the effects of starting to make shots, and like we all wondered if that was going to happen for this Kentucky team. Coach Pope was adamant that this team would turn into a good shooting team. I think we all knew that they were going to progress a little bit. Like they weren't going to shoot, Steven, the number, like what was it, like 25% against the good teams at bad. One point, like quite literally the percentage was just awful. And 22% is even worse than I could have guessed. Like we all knew it wasn't going to be 22%, but the question was going to be, is it going to be 32%? Is it going to be 35%? Is it going to be 38%? Like, well, right now, at least it's 38%. I mean, that they're shooting 38.7% in SEC play. Well, all of a sudden, opponent scouting reports, defensive rotations, spacing, they look a heck of a lot different when you're shooting 38% from 3 than they do when you're shooting 22% from 3. Because, I mean, think back to some of the games where it was the worst for Kentucky offensively, and it is teams that are just absolutely packing the paint. I mean, think back to the Missouri game even. It wasn't that long ago, and they just straight up weren't guarding dudes. They were putting 10 feet in the paint and saying, hey, beat me from somewhere else. A, I don't think you're going to make the pass to them. B, even if you do, I think they're going to miss the shot. Well, now you're seeing Kentucky make the pass and make the shot. I mean, you're looking at these guys now. Otega Owe, 37% from 3, 22 makes. Denzel Aberdine, 38.8%, 26 makes. Jasper Johnson, 38.8%, 19 makes. Colin Chandler, 41%, 32 makes. Cam Williams getting going, and he still has more room to grow, quite frankly. 23 makes, 34%. Yelovich is like 6 for his last 11 or something like that from 3-point range. So now, yes, are we probably going to see now? I mean, we've been waiting for progression to the mean. There probably is going to be a little regression to the mean now as well. Like I don't think this is a 38.7% 3-point shooting team. I think the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. I think they're probably over the course of the SEC play going to be 35%. But what's going to be really important? What's going to be really important is if they end up being 32%, we're going to go back to really struggling. If it's going to be 35%, we can be pretty good. If it stays 38%, we're going to compete to win the freaking league. Like we just are. Because it's wide open. So like what level you end up there is going to tell us a lot about what this team looks like going forward. But looking back at why you've been able to come back and win some of these games, it's because defense looks different when you're making shots and when you're sharing the ball. And I think you're really starting to see Kentucky buy in to sharing the ball, and the byproduct of that is making some open shots.
Yeah, and just to quickly run through some 5-game sample sizes from the SEC. So you've got Ortega at 43%, Denzel at 47%, you can expect those numbers to come down a little bit. But Denzel's still a career 35% 3-point shooter, so you don't expect that to fall or like plummet. Ortega, for all his weird quirks with his jump shot, is still a 35% type shooter, so you can expect that to kind of hover around there. Cam Williams at 31% through SEC play. You imagine that will take up a little bit. Yelovich is at 50%. Colin Chandler's at 47%. Jasper's at 50%. So you expect those to come down to earth a little bit, but not too much, because those are the guys that you want shooting the ball anyways, and the guys that are going to be shooting. So you do I do feel like that 35% spot is probably where Kentucky ends up settling in, which will be like, that's fine. Like, they can win games doing that. So I think that's perfectly fine with how they're actually getting those shots. So, anything else you want to note before we move on to a little Jasper Johnson, Malachi Moreno fun that I had with some numbers and clips?
Let's talk about the Kentucky boys.
So there was like 5 or 6 different possessions in this game where Jasper and Malachi worked well. They didn't all end in points, or even like, directly shot attempts, things like that. But I did pull up 3 in particular that I liked from this game. And I need to go all the way back to the beginning here, where these two just have like, it's not the fact that they're Kentucky boys, like that they're from the same state, but it kind of is because they've grown up together. They've played basketball together a lot. So I'm sure there is a little bit of synergy that was already kind of baked in when they got here on campus. So one of the stats that I had that I'll talk about real quick is Jasper has 41 assists this season. 12 of them, which is over a quarter of his assists, are to Malachi Moreno. I don't think that's a coincidence either. I think those two work well in the pick and roll. I think they have a good chemistry that's only continuing to get better. And I think this game was a good example of that. So I'm just going to run through a handful. Like, we won't spend too much time, but there's 3 different clips that I liked here, and I'll let you talk about them after, Brandon, whenever they play through all 3 clips here. But this was early on in the game here. I don't remember if this one ends in points or not, but this was just let me see here. Okay, yes. So Jasper comes around, gets receives a little handoff from Malachi there. Again, Tennessee, what they were doing most of this game was like double teaming, trapping on these little handoffs, these pick and rolls, things like that. And then just makes a nice little bounce pass here to Malachi, who ends up getting fouled. He misses both these free throws, but I thought this was a very just natural movement from these two guys. They just always seem to know where each other is on the floor, especially Jasper with Malachi. So just a quick little movement there. Jasper plays off 2 feet, doesn't get himself into trouble, finds Malachi for an easy shot at the rim there. Like I said, misses both those free throws. But Brandon, anything from this play that really sticks out to you?
The movement when the ball goes in the post, like the split action here that you get between Jasper Johnson and Otega Owe. Earlier in the year, we talked about how Kentucky has a standing problem. Look at this. Pause it right here. And then look at this actual screen. Like the ball goes in the post, and you set an actual screen. Otega Owe does on Jasper Johnson to get downhill to his left hand. Now, with that speed, that draws Malachi's man. He does a great job splitting it with the little pass here. Like, all of those things. He actually throws that behind the defender's back. That's pretty awesome.
Well, he's got a 7-foot wingspan. That's where it comes in handy right there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just those little things. And like, we've all talked about it. I mean, people in the comments talk about it. We talked about it on the show. It's not always rocket science. Like, hey, imagine that. You throw the ball in the post, then you screen and cut a little bit, and you get a wide open, or I guess not a wide open, and you get fouled at the rim. Like, yeah, sometimes that's all it takes. It doesn't require you to change the rotations or change who's playing or all of a sudden reinvent the wheel offensively. It's like, just execute the little details and the minutia of the way basketball has been played for 50, 60 years. And all of a sudden some things start to work pretty well. But you're right, the chemistry that those two have, maybe it's something in the water of Central Kentucky. I don't know, but those guys know how to play together.
Yeah, I'm sure they've done a lot together in practice and everything. And like I said, like, there is something to just playing with a guy on and off randomly over the course of essentially your entire childhood. And then the very next offensive play here for Kentucky is you see a similar thing. And it's like, I don't think anything I'm about to show is like too complicated or like, anything like that. But I think it just kind of points to the trust that at least Jasper has in Malachi. And then Malachi's ability as a playmaker to make, keep plays going as a 7-footer, whereas with other 7-footers, the thing like plays might stick and die. So this is just another little pick and roll example here. Jasper calls for it with Malachi. Again, Tennessee kind of brings up both guys. Jasper does not really panic. He steps through, hits an easy pass for Malachi. And essentially, Malachi is just, he's got 5 defenders, actually, all looking right at him right now. He's got multiple different options he can go with how he wants to make this pass. Like, you can go to Ortega, you can go to Cam, you can go to Yelovich. He ends up finding Yelovich wide open for a 3. This is a big shot for Kentucky at the time. Like I said, nothing too crazy or special about this, but just the feel that these two have together, Jasper and Malachi, allows to keep a play that could potentially die right there. Like if Jasper just kind of leans back, then he's double teamed. It can easily turn this ball over, but instead steps through, makes just an easy dump off pass, nothing too hard. Malachi quickly surveys his options, finds a 3-point shooter. Boom. Easy points right there. So Brandon, anything from that one?
A couple things. Once again, this is Kentucky executing out of that short roll that they got nothing out of early against LSU. I think one of the things that helped here was Malachi being a little more patient on his catch. Like he's just catching this as opposed to catching it and then like trying to attack. Like that's not his game. Maybe Mo Diabate can do that. Like he can kind of catch it on the dribble and maybe make some passes or go try to score. But like Malachi doesn't have that in his game yet, where he's going to catch it from the elbow and like make something happen off the dribble. But he is a good passer when he's standing there and survey. I mean, that's why he's good in the zoom action stuff. That's why he's good right here. Another thing I like here is by throwing the ball ahead, Jasper's able to get it and play off this ball screen from the catch. We see times where Jasper tends to over dribble. Sometimes I think getting him in positions where he can play off of that ball screen from the catch just kind of allows him to make some quicker kind of snap decisions as opposed to being on his 3rd, 4th, 5th dribble already, where he's sort of like, I think every time he dribbles it, he probably gets more in scoring mode. And that's not necessarily the worst thing. I just think it's probably something that he has to play out of as he gets older. So I liked him being able to make this play off the catch into that ball screen, reads the ball screen really well. He's very comfortable manipulating the pick and roll. Again, that chemistry with Moreno, I like, and as I mentioned, kind of him catching it with his feet set at the elbow as opposed to like going to try to do something, I thought really allowed him to then survey the floor and make a play out of it. Because again, this is what you have to do to opposing defenses is at the highest levels of college basketball, there is no defense that can take away everything from an offense. It's what scouting is about. It's what game plans are about. It's about choosing the lesser of two evils, or trying to take away things that are your philosophy, or try to force teams into things that they're not as good at. Like if you can then start to make them pay for what they're going to give you, well, that's how you become pretty darn good offensively. And we've been able to see that now a little bit in spurts, in second half spurts, mostly from Kentucky, is like really starting to make defenses pay for what they give you. And in different games, it's going to be different things. But here these are guys that, Jasper Johnson and Andrea Yelovich, 2 of the 3 key contributors of this play. Like these guys weren't playing in the games
2 games ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're 2 of the 3 pieces that, had a clip that made it into our show. So, it's pretty good stuff from these guys here.
Yeah. And like we've talked about it a handful of times over the last couple of weeks, just we want to see what Jasper can do. Like what can the kid do? Can he actually go out there and play like a 5-star? I think he looks like it, or at least the closest we've seen all season. Other than that 22-point game against NC Central or whatever, that doesn't really count. Like we want to see this kid against real teams. So I got one more play from these two that that we'll show here real quick.
I think I know what it's going to be, Zach.
Yeah, it was one play after the zoom action one we did with OA and them. So, and this was probably my favorite play of the entire game, if I'm being quite honest, because from where I was in this, you probably can't tell as well. Like just watching it like this, but from where Jack and I were sitting, like, so we're up, like back here, we're up there. So like, I could not, like when the ball was going in the basket, I could not physically see the ball go in. But from where I was, I had a great sight of where Jasper was looking on this play, and Jasper is not looking at Malachi when he throws this ball. So this is a no look pass that Jasper just makes perfectly to Malachi here. So we'll start it back from the beginning. But I just thought this was an amazing pass, and like just the ability to find Malachi, not an easy pass at all. Malachi was able to get himself in a good position, make a little bump on Nate Ament there, who plays like he's a string bing than he actually is. And then easy finish for Malachi there. So this was just good. Like this is just fast offense. Yeah, strong. Big fast offense. You get a nice screen from Malachi to start it off, and then he kind of just trickles his way into the lane. Again, Tennessee with the double, like they're just trying to trap all these things. It leaves somebody open when you're doing that. Malachi is able to take advantage of that empty space. It drags Nate Ament over from Colin Chandler. And then, I mean, if Jasper really wanted, he could have taken another half beat and like fired this over to Colin Chandler for a 3, but he makes the right play, and you get Malachi Moreno for an and 1. I don't remember if he makes that free throw or not, but
he does.
He does make it. Yes.
Yep. On the other side of the TV timeout. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a massive play in the moment, but really just the coolest play of the entire game. Because like I said, from where I was, Jasper Johnson was not looking at Malachi when he fired off this pass. So I was really impressed with that. Brandon, what did you like from this one?
I said it in real time. I said it in my breakdown on Twitter. There's only one guy who A, has the confidence to throw this pass, and B, has the talent to make the pass. Jalen Lowe's not. Jalen Lowe could make this pass.
I don't even think Jalen Lowe can get this pass over.
Well, there might be some truth to that. But of the guys that are currently competing for Kentucky, it's the only guy that's making this pass on the team. That's Jasper Johnson. And what I loved was we've talked about this team's struggles to read the defense, and I'll use the same term I've been using, like make the defense pay for what they're giving you. And here you get them in a situation where they're tagging on the roll. Well, that means that you're either going to have Colin Chandler open for a 3, or you're going to have Malachi Moreno open on the roll. And what Jasper's looking for here is, okay, where's Nate Ament? Well, Nate Ament tags in pretty aggressively, but he's on the outside of Malachi. So, I mean, really, Jasper could have delivered either pass here, but he throws it to his buddy because he thinks, he's a lot stronger. He's bigger than Nate Ament. He's going to get a catch here. It's just a great option. If Ament would have gone, maybe a little bit further in and been on the other side of Moreno, then he can just whip it across the court to Colin Chandler, and he probably nails the 3. So you get the same 3 points either way here. But it was just an excellent read. So much confidence making that pass, and once again, you just see Kentucky actually executing based on defensive rotations and what they're giving you, and it's good to see. And these are the things that you can build on from game to game as they really start to execute some of this stuff and start building some chemistry with one another.
And Alan MZ3TR in the chat here, he notes the spacing here, and like, look at this. This is where the action starts. Look at the spacing on this. Like, this is awesome. Like Ortega is becoming a more effective 3-point shooter, so you have to respect his game a little bit more out there. And you see that happen here when they kind of close up on him a little bit more as Jasper gets this ball. And then, like Jasper could have easily made that whip across, like that cross court pass to Colin, but I think it goes back to kind of the overarching idea of why I chose these plays is Jasper trusts Malachi. It's not to say he doesn't trust Colin, but I think he really trusts Malachi to make those type of plays. And one other stat that I have from this is, so this is from CBB Analytics. I sent this to you all yesterday, but when Jasper and Malachi share the floor together, it's been 135 total minutes. Kentucky is a plus 94 when those two share the floor together. So I cut that. I was like, that's pretty impressive. Let's cut it down to just the high majors and see if it's any, if it actually flips one way or the other. So in 41 minutes against high majors, and I don't believe that it counts Gonzaga and all these metrics because they're not technically a high major, but so just keep that in your mind as well. But they're plus 29 in 41 minutes together when they're playing against high majors. Do you want to know what the plus minus is when Jasper Johnson is off the floor against high majors and Malachi Moreno is, or no, what did I say? When Jasper Johnson is on the floor against high majors and Malachi Moreno is off the floor, what do you think their plus minus is?
I bet it's negative.
Minus 22 in 40 minutes.
Yeesh.
So that is that's over a 51 point swing in a matter of just having Malachi Moreno on the floor. And now that I'm thinking about this, I probably should have done the same stat with Brandon Garrison just to see if there's any correlation there. But I imagine it's not nearly as high as it is with Malachi because and Pope probably knows this as well, that those two guys have some good synergy together, so he puts them on the floor more often than not. But it definitely feels like whenever Jasper's on the floor, he needs to have Malachi on there as well. Just because those two, they just make you, or at least Malachi makes Jasper more comfortable. And I'm sure there's other factors that go into that, but that's just kind of an easy, not necessarily even cherry pick stat. Like those are real numbers. Like that's a decent sample size there.
Yeah.
Against good quality opponents. So, and then, yeah, like I said, the 12 of his 41 assists or to Malachi Moreno. The next highest guy is Andrea Jelovich, who's only received 5 assists from Jasper Johnson. So like the numbers they're large enough that I can at least look at them and feel confident. And then you have eye test numbers like this, or not numbers, but eye test stuff like this here, where you see, okay, like multiple times a game, these guys are trying to get into actions together and it's working out well. So big shout out to the 2 Kentucky kids who were massive in that game. You know, it was Trent Noah against Tennessee last year. This year, it's Malachi Moreno and Jasper Johnson making big plays. So something about these Kentucky kids when they play Tennessee, they really enjoy themselves. So let's see here, Brandon. I do want to just, because that's the end of our clips here, but I do just want to show the last like 2, all important plays for Kentucky, the ones that essentially won them this game. Let's get down here to Ortega's. Oh, here we go, right here. So, Brandon, I'm sure you saw like in the post-game stuff where Colin Chandler said that he heard Rick Barnes call it the play here and he knew exactly what the play was and he just kind of baited them into letting them do it. And then at the last second, he just picks off the pass here. And remember what I was saying about the simple pass stuff with Colin Chandler? Like you can see him kind of hesitate on this pass here when he's throwing it to Ortega.
Yeah.
But
he was scared to death he was going to turn it over.
He was. And I think I was too. Like personally, I was like, oh my God, please just like, he lofted it as like, it felt like it was floating in the air for 5 minutes, the way it just floated up there. But we're going to run through this play and Denzel's play at the end there, just kind of real quick before we end the show, just because these were the 2 biggest plays of the game. So all of this is really simple. Like Nate Ament just kind of makes a cut across the court here, and the ball is meant to go for him. Like Carey doesn't make a good screen at all, but Colin Chandler knows it's coming as well, so he knows to get himself around the pick, and as long as he does that, boom, he's going to be able to jump that one right there. And then, yes, floats the ball as high as he possibly can up to Ortega. It ends up being a perfect pass for the and one there that gives Kentucky the lead. And then I believe they missed that shot, and then it goes back out to Denzel, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, Brandon, when you were watching this live, I guess just what were you thinking? And is there anything to this other than Colin Chandler just knowing the play ahead of time and being able to play it really well?
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you know what's coming, when you're a veteran that has some sense about him. I mean, this is a typical little like Iverson cut by Tennessee there, and whatever the play was called, I don't know what the play was called, but clearly something triggered for Chandler to know what was coming. And yeah, like when you can jump kind of over the top of that Iverson stuff, it's pretty easy to steal. And he read it, he heard it, whatever it is, and made the play. And yeah, I mean, it was just a couple of games ago where actually I think it was even during the second half of LSU.
Yeah, he threw a lob to Ortega.
Pass. And I remember thinking like, all right, like it was sweet he stole this, but man, it's going to really stink when he throws it to Kentucky's bench here. But he made a good play. And like, yeah, do you want your guys to? I talk about it on defense all the time. Like, yeah, do you want your guys to like truly play scared? No. Nothing wrong with having a little fear in your heart at times, like for a couple of things. Like being a little afraid of turning it over ain't the worst thing in the world. And I think here, yes, he was scared to death that he was going to turn it over.
He was,
and quite frankly, that might have helped him make sure the ball got to Ortega Owe here. So it's the game-winning play, quite frankly. I mean, maybe Kentucky gets a stop there and you go score anyway, but it's a heck of a lot easier to score like this than it is to have to execute in the half court against Tennessee. It was really fun to watch in real time, man. I got pretty pumped when this went down.
Yeah, it was awesome. The whole like our little section, like we were right next to the families, or like the players, their families were the section next to us. So like immediately that whole, like it felt like you were in like a mini rup. It was pretty cool. But wasn't it the LSU game in the last like 5 minutes or something where Colin tried to throw a lob to Ortega and just like threw it right out of bounds, and Ortega got on him, like, and then to have like kind of the confidence to then throw the full court heave to Malachi later ends up being, big. But I'm sure that's what that missed lob he had to Ortega at the LSU game. I'm sure that kind of like for a half second crept into his mind when he was about to throw that pass, saying, okay, like don't overthrow him. Whatever you do, do not overthrow him. So he ended up throwing a perfect pass. Like he floated it. As long as he's not actually throwing like a lob for a dunk, it feels like he's a good passer. Like if he's trying to throw a lob for a dunk, it just doesn't go well for whatever reason. So, and I think I made this point in the rapid reaction too, but that's 2 straight games now, LSU and Tennessee, where Mark Pope has had Colin Chandler in for the final 7-8 minutes of a game. He's not putting up crazy numbers or anything, but he's hitting shots and he's playing defense. And that's really all you can ask for him in those moments, is to hit shots and play defense. So when he's doing that, there's go for it.
Oh, I was just saying he was money down the stretch in this game. I mean,
yes,
Denzel Aberdine, Otega Oweh, they're going to be remembered for what they did. I mean, even Mo Diabate to some extent down the stretch, but like Colin Chandler did like nothing wrong and a lot of things right down the stretch. It wasn't just this play. It was probably 4, 5, 6 different possessions on both ends of the floor where he was actively contributing to either getting stops, getting rebounds, Kentucky scoring the ball. He was lights out. And when you can really start to trust guys like that, that's how you get in the game late in the games. And obviously what he's bringing now on both ends of the floor really helps that.
Absolutely. So let's just take it one final look here before we get out of here. This will be the final play we look at, but so this is right after Ortega's and one here. Steps to the line. Not a good free throw shooting night for Ortega, but we will overlook that when the result here is. Oh, and we haven't really talked about Mo Diabate, but for the final 4 minutes of this game, Mo Diabate was like the best player on the floor, just in terms of being bigger and stronger than everyone and using that as his talent, essentially. So in that sense, he was the best player on the floor, I think, in this last 3 or 4 minutes because of all the ways he was able to get defense or offensive rebounds and everything. I think it was Jack even that told us one of the weirdest stats of this game was like in the second half, pretty much all of Kentucky's rebounds were offensive. Like I think they had like like all of them were offensive rebounds, something like that. That's just for the game here. So second half, 8 and 8. Yeah, 8 offensive rebounds, 8 defensive rebounds in the second half.
In the second half, Kentucky had 13 offensive rebounds, 4 defensive rebounds.
Okay, I'm looking at Tennessee there. That would be
wild. Yep, 13 to 4.
Yeah, 13 to 4. 13 offensive rebounds to 4 defensive rebounds in the second half alone. That's a crazy. I legitimately did not believe that stat. Like I had to go look it up myself when Jack was telling us it. But you see one of them right here, like Mo Diabate just being bigger, flips it back out, and then Denzel. You say, okay, we're gonna do what we've done literally the entire half. Denzel, we're gonna space the floor for you. We're gonna call up our pick here. We're gonna try and get you in a pick and roll action. They just do a straight switch here. And then Denzel just says, okay, I've got the 300-pound kid on me. Like I'm going at him. And then this shot right here is just like, I don't know how else you describe that other than just the guy's a hooper, like that's just a tough shot. Left hand, basically 2 guys on him. Probably could have gotten called for a foul there with the way Gillespie's arms were outstretched over Denzel when he was shooting it. But there's nothing really to this other than just Denzel being, winning that one-on-one right there. But the offensive rebound from Mo was the best part about this. And then to get that shot as a result to put Kentucky at 3. I mean, my mind was all over the place when this play actually happened. But Brandon, what did you like about this?
It was the other side of something that we saw against Missouri. Like Missouri offensive rebounded a missed free throw that kind of won them the game at Rupp Arena. Well, guess what? We offensive rebounded a missed free throw that won us the game at Tennessee. I mean, those are the sort of things sometimes that you have to have happen to win games like this. I mean, is there like a ton of skill to everything that just happened there? Like, is it a little bit of a lucky bounce on an offense rebound? Sure. Is this a 25% shot from Denzel Aberdine?
Yes.
Sure. But, sometimes you get the bear, sometimes the bear gets you. And like Kentucky just made the plays. Trust me, we've seen enough times where Kentucky didn't make the plays to win basketball games this season. Kentucky made plays to win a tough basketball game in a tough environment on Saturday. And you obviously you're going to have to continue to stack some of those going forward in other games, because there's plenty of tough games still to be played. I mean, what was, I forget who had the stat, but Kentucky has the toughest schedule in college basketball through the rest of the season. So, that's what we have to look forward to for the little bit of fun that we got to have last week, but there'll be more fun to come if you can keep, not just plays like this, because again, there's quite a bit of luck associated with really what you just saw right in this clip. But it's good to have it on our side for once, because quite frankly, we haven't experienced a ton of that, even just in recent years as Big Blue Nation. So I'll take a week where we throw in a buzzer beater on a crazy baseball pass and we, have some things go right down the stretch to beat Tennessee. I'm going to apologize to absolutely nobody, as Conor McGregor once said.
Yeah, these are just, I mean, they're not the ideal ways to win, but they sure are fun ways to win. So you can't say that Kentucky hasn't been exciting, at least the last several weeks, for both good and bad. But I think that'll about wind us down here, at least with all of our clips. We'll just kind of close things out here for the last few minutes. Kentucky has they've got a quad 2 game on tomorrow night against Texas at home. Then they play a quad 3 game, Travis Perry's return, when Ole Miss comes to town on Saturday. So I think after that, though, it's like you've got quad 1 after quad 1 after quad 1. So if you can go 2-0 this week, you can set yourself up in a good position to start really building your resume. Because if you'd want to win these 2 games to continue to fight off the bubble talk. And then if you can do that, then you can really start talking about, okay, so now let's start trying to build our seed here. Let's see how high we can go up. Let's see if we can, let's see if they can jump to a 4 or a 5 seed if all things go correctly for them. So, oh yeah, and Holly is mentioning Mark Pope manhandling Owe and Brandon Garrison at the very end there. That was impressive. Like, we might almost just need to we need to do a breakdown for just that play. Like, I was impressed at how Mark Pope was down there at the end of the floor before everything even happened. So, but Brandon, here, let's look at this real quick. Just because
it helps when your coach is 6'9", 225.
Yeah, there he goes. Ooh, that's good awareness from Mark Pope, like great IQ from the big man there to figure out a way to get his 2 guys out of the action there. Like, ooh, and like 2 guys at once too. Like, he's got the double team and he's handling it well. So good job from Mark Pope there, dealing with the aftermath of that one. But yeah, it was a fun ending. Anything else, Brandon, from this one that you want to talk about? I know you're going to be in Lexington for these next 2 games, right?
Yes, I will be around. But no, I think that this is a week where you have a chance to prove what just happened last week. I mean, again, yeah, was there a little bit of luck involved winning those 2 road games? Sure. But you can kind of quiet some of that talk if you take care of business and win these 2 at home. Like, if all of a sudden you drop one of these and it's like, all right, this is what this Kentucky team's going to be. They're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat every once in a while, but quite frankly, they're not that good. They also lose to teams they shouldn't lose to at home. We just don't know what we're going to get on a night-to-night basis. I think if you can take care of business, win these 2 games at home, we can all of a sudden start to talk about like maybe figuring out what this team can be. I think, and as you mentioned, I think that winning these 2 games at home, barring a disaster, it puts making the tournament behind you, and you can start to really build that resume. I mean, these wins don't necessarily help your resume a ton, but the losses would hurt you, and you have to avoid those, and then give yourself a chance to go, win some quad 1 games to then really start to strengthen that schedule. But I'm super excited about these 2 home opportunities. I would beg and plead Big Blue Nation to make sure we show up for these games, because even though they're maybe not the most exciting, it's not Arkansas, it's not Tennessee, it's not Alabama. Like these games for this Kentucky team matter a ton. You really, really need to take care of business this week. I know the weather is not going to be super fun, but hey, Rupp Arena's climate controlled, so who cares? Come in there and get and escape the snow and the cold for a little bit, because yeah, you really need to take care of business in these 2 games. And then you get to have some fun going forward. So I'm super excited to see what we get from the Cats this week.
Yeah, the Ole Miss game will be a quad 3 one, but the Travis Perry return, having it at noon on a Saturday, I think that place is going to be. I think it'll be loud for that game, just for the whole.
There's
Travis
also a
Perry
real chance that one is right on the cusp of becoming quad 2.
Okay.
Ole Miss is 79th in the net.
75
right now. They need to get to 75. I'm going to quickly. I don't know who they play. They play Auburn at home tonight.
So you almost want them to win if you're Kentucky.
Yeah. If Ole Miss beats Auburn tonight, then probably that's a quad 2 game on Saturday. I mean, again, all these things are fluid on a game-to-game basis. So,
Yes.
but the point is that's going to be a game that could be either quad 2 or quad 3 by the end of the year. It's going to be one of those that are kind of on that cut line that we'll be watching. Just like, if Indiana can punch up to quad 1 at some point, there's a couple, Missouri might fall out of quad 1 to quad 2 at some point, though there's actually more wiggle room there than you would expect. So, there's a few games like that can kind of be a swing game, but Ole Miss is in a position to potentially jump up to quad 2.
One last thing we will touch on before we go is Jaden Quaintance will not play tomorrow. That'll be his 4th straight missed game as he continues to deal with some knee swelling and just, regular rehab stuff, essentially, after coming back from not playing in 9 months. There was a question there about how does a potential JQ return impact chemistry and how Pope goes about the lineups and rotations. We'll just wait to talk about all that, honestly, because I like what the team is doing right now, so I don't want to overthink myself by throwing JQ back in there. Like, if he comes back for the Ole Miss game, that would be awesome, and then then we'll be able to break it down afterwards next week, and we can kind of touch on that a little bit. But we don't really have to talk too much on that. But just any quick thoughts on JQ not playing or anything like that?
Two things. One, I agree. Like, right now he's out.
Malachi and BG are working, so it's.
Yeah. So right now he's out. There's nothing really to talk about it. And to me, we don't need to go down that road until he's cleared to play and we actually see him in there. Two, I honestly think it works itself out relatively well. Like, Malachi Moreno's gonna continue to command probably 20 minutes a game. So you're gonna play JQ the other 15 to 20 minutes. You get BG some spot minutes. Like, I think that's just gonna be what it is. So I don't really think that it. I think the path to his minutes is really pretty clear and obvious. And I don't, it would take some away from Brandon Garrison. But even as his biggest fan, I think we're all probably okay with that for the most part. I mean, maybe Brandon Garrison isn't, but right. That's a different question. And then, lastly, quite frankly, he's whatever you think about the guy, he's a projected lottery pick. Like,
still,
you figure it out. Like, there's none of this, and this isn't to lecture people, but there's not a bone in my body that's like, I kind of wish he would just shut it down. We're better off just moving on. No, we're not. No, we're not, folks. Like, we're better. Whether Jaden Quintus plays 2 minutes a game, 20 minutes a game, whatever it is, the Kentucky's ceiling involves Jaden Quintus playing in the games and doing think back to what we saw against St. John's. I know he hasn't been super effective in the other games, but he darn near won us that one. So yes, I'm willing. I know we're all, scared to death about, Shaden Sharp and all the, Severe Wheeler, all these different things of will he, won't he? I get it. I'm not telling everybody to not worry about it, to not be, thinking we're getting played. I get it, but I'm willing to play the game because we want and need him in there if and when we can get him in there.
And that will close us out. So thanks everyone for watching. We'll see what happens with JQ over the coming days. Hopefully they can get him back for Ole Miss and just try and start to incorporate him back into the lineup as soon as possible. Like you said, still a projected lottery pick, so you'd rather have him than not. But yes, Kentucky looking for a 4-game win streak tomorrow night. For myself, Zack Geoghegan, for Brandon Ramsey over there, for Stephen Peak behind the camera, for My Old Kentucky Home Repairs, our sponsor. Thank you all for watching. Stephen is always reminding me to do this. I need to get better at it. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those fun things. Help us out. Help us build our channel. So we appreciate everyone, and we will talk to you all next time.